is really picking up.
I'm in Australia, a land of extremes. Extreme heat, floods, and fires.
The fire is crossing the road, just right ahead of us. Wow!
Climate change is making it all more intense. This year's fire season has come early, and it's shaping up to be one of the worst in history.
That could get seriously big. Shit's going to get seriously big.
We know life in Australia is becoming unbearably hot. Could climate change make the country uninhabitable? That's what I'm here to find out. Australia is vast and diverse, with coasts that meet 5 different seas. Being down under usually conjures images of an idyllic life of surf and sand, but a more realistic portrait of the country is emerging, that of a hostile desert.
The Central Australian outback. This place is inhospitable on a good day. Droughts and heat waves are commonplace here. Last summer, they experienced the hottest day on record, the hottest month on record, and the hottest summer on record.
In fact, Australia had to add 2 new colors to its weather maps for temperatures hotter than 122 degrees Fahrenheit.
Sun is something we escape here. Sun is something we avoid here. The sun will kill you here. Quite literally. You're outside with no shelter. 3 days is all you got.
I came to Australia on a mission of discovery to find out if climate change was causing this place to become uninhabitable.
Flooding, droughts, and heat waves are nothing new here, but records show they're increasing in intensity and frequency. Deaths from heat waves have doubled in the last decade. Drought has drained reservoirs and driven families off the land they've farmed for generations. But what's fueling all these extremes?
Without a doubt, this stuff's being driven up by the fact we've got more greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. The climate's warming, it's shifting to a hotter state.
Australia is part of a global problem. Countries around the world are pumping more carbon into the atmosphere than ever before, mostly by burning coal, oil, and gas. The resulting extremes in weather, prolonged heat and bone-dry conditions, lead to vicious bushfires. Lightning is most often the spark.
Victoria ablaze.
Year after year, the fire season is starting earlier, lasting longer, and fires are burning more intensely.
These things aren't just fires creeping along, these are firestorms. These are roiling, burning masses of gas that can just jump across grassy areas and start burning. They're huge phenomena that can move quickly, develop quickly, and fires are only going to get worse.
Bushfires are almost 20 times more deadly and 80 times more destructive than a century ago. This morning in the Adelaide Hills, it's already a scorching 100 degrees Fahrenheit.
The danger has been elevated last night up to catastrophic for today, and doesn't really get any more dangerous than catastrophic.
A decade ago, the worst fire weather conditions were called extreme. They've since had to add a level beyond that, catastrophic.
What the firefighters are demonstrating right now is their protection system. They have shields that come down on the inside of the glass and a water spray that surrounds the entire truck. So if the fire overtakes the truck, it keeps these guys safe. That is impressive.
And the risks for those on the front line are very real. Since 1980, 83 firefighters have been killed.
I hope you guys never have to use it.
Yeah, so do we.
Thanks, guys.
On a catastrophic fire day, access to burn areas is highly restricted.
Oh, I reckon that's pretty good.
The only way in is with the fire crews themselves.
Go.
Ian Tanner, a veteran with the Country Fire Service, is going to show me what they're up against.
We've got conservation park on both sides, so it's mostly vegetation.
Fuel.
Fuel, that's exactly right, fuel.
What the locals call vegetation, you call fuel.
We're traveling along a ridge through the Mount Lofty ranges. On both sides are steep hills and valleys covered in dense bush.
get a real sense now of what we're up against. And fire typically goes up.
It's the one thing that can go uphill faster than downhill.
All those houses up on that ridge line are almost undefendable on a day like today.
So people are evacuating their houses on the speculation that maybe a fire might form.
That's correct.
So how many people are we talking about here?
You could be talking about 100,000 people or more.
That's a major evacuation.
Obviously not everyone does it. And
Clearly.
there's a house down there that's probably relatively safe. They would probably choose to stay home.
The Moorcrofts are incredibly well armed in their fight to protect their home from fire.
What I would really love is to see your sprinkler system in action. Okay. So what have you got going on?
Their elaborate sprinkler system can create a wall of water approximately 130 feet around the house.
We've lived here for 20 years and we haven't actually had a fire that's come within, well, a few hundred meters of the house.
The water comes from a 5,000-gallon tank that's dedicated solely to firefighting.
And so you got your personal bushfire kit? Radio.
This is the channel that gives all the fire warnings. A headlamp.
And this is all in the name of home protection.
That's right. Just never know when it could happen, so you always need to be prepared.
So if you live in the bush in Australia, the very bare minimum that you need to protect your property is this type of equipment. So we've got a report that just came in of a grass fire not too far away. And there's some other units that are being deployed.
Okay. For the moment, it's probably in grassland.
Oh, yeah, I think some smoke, yeah.
Firefighters and volunteers arrive at the scene very quickly.
Where's the access?
There's a low-intensity fire in a predominantly grassy area. It's roughly 40 acres in size.
Here comes the crane.
It's crucial firefighters act quickly. They know from experience they only have 15 minutes to get this fire out, because on a catastrophic fire day, conditions can change in a second.
If you have a look at the leaves in the trees, you can see that the leaves are still there, so the fire hasn't got up into the trees.
Right.
So it's come through here fairly quickly. It's not real big high flames.
Here's an area where you can see the fire is just in this very low-lying fuel. So just the grass and the leaf litter.
Incoming!
Fire retardants.
In no time, the fire is pretty much out.
These guys are really on the ball. They're so fast at what they do.
Ground crews are backed by highly trained professionals and volunteers who dispatch crews and analyze fire behavior. As climate change increases the intensity of bushfires, operations have had to grow larger and more sophisticated.
It's very fluky wind at the moment. You feel that wind now picking up?
That doesn't bode well for the rest of the afternoon.
No.
This steep topography can funnel the wind, making fire behavior very unpredictable.
You can see how these hot spots can easily flare up again. It doesn't take much. You get a little ember from something like this, and you've got a whole new fire.
And just as the fire is almost completely put out, Ian gets bad news.
It's jumped.
Right. Jumped across this little valley.
Crews have to act fast. They know that one ember in this thick brush with poor access could turn this small grass fire into a monster.
And the fire is just right ahead of us. Wow!
As climate change raises temperatures across Australia, it's fueling unprecedented bushfires.
Okay, that fire behind us.
What started as a small grass fire that was nearly put out has jumped into the thicker brush and is growing very quickly.
It's coming up through the grass there. Water bomber overhead. You can see it's getting very, very close. And it's going to jump this. This is no fire break. It's going to go. We're getting called back.
Yep, we're going. It's spotted over the creek. Now, if it does that again and again, it gets very hard.
Australian bushfires are notorious for jumping huge distances. This is largely because of the eucalyptus trees. Firefighters call them gasoline trees because fire moves incredibly fast up the trunk, along the string of bark to the canopy of the tree. Up there, broad leaves that are filled with combustible eucalyptus oil don't just burn, they explode, shooting flaming bark and leaves in all directions. Add a good wind, and fire can be thrown as far as 20 miles away.
The situation is changing very, very dynamically. I've been given the 2-minute warning here. We have to get out because the wind is starting to change direction. I can see the smoke now blowing this way, so we got to bolt.
The fire is fully taken in the scrub. Heavier fuels mean the fire burns more intensely and is much harder to put out. Air bombers attack the head of the fire, but it rekindles in minutes. The fire's moving fast and is headed straight for the town of Kursbrook, where residents are scrambling to evacuate.
Just on one of the access roads here, and the fire is just coming up over the ridge and crossing the road, just right ahead of us. And it's just making its way up on these branches. We've got a safe escape route down this way. We've got to really keep a close eye on the fire behavior. This tree here is already up. The wind is predominantly blowing in this direction, so the fire is going to spread this way. There it comes. Wow!
In just a few hours, the fire has left a path of destruction through the hills 10 miles long and a half-mile wide.
Water bumper. Blizzard running from the fire. That's what happens. The fire just pushes all these animals out ahead, and they're just running for their lives. So I'm going to bring them over to a safe spot and let them free.
Fire continues down the ridge, leaving total destruction in its wake.
So you'll see it's not much left now.
So all this fire damage is just moments old. It's still hot.
Topography drew it to the top of the hill, and now it's heading south again at a fair rate of knots.
The fire burns through the forest, heating the ground 40 feet in front of it, making it impossible for crews to get close. We're able to follow the tail of the fire. That is, until shifting winds change everything.
Wow.
Until now, this fire was spreading with a narrow front. An extreme 90-degree wind shift has now turned the flank fire into a head fire, going from a half-mile wide front to a 10-mile wide front in the blink of an eye.
Is there any chance we're going to be able to stop it getting through there?
No way, mate.
That could get seriously big.
Oh, shit's going to get seriously big, mate.
Support is called in from fire services in the neighboring states. But will they have the resources to stop the fire before it sweeps into the populated hillside towns?
Right now, there's basically nothing that the firefighters can do. They're trying to protect some of the assets, homes, farms in the area, but that's all they can do, try and slow it down. It goes to show how capricious fire actually can be. All it takes is a little ember from a fire that we thought was out to just light up the whole area.
And the bigger the fire, the more erratically it can behave.
Smoke devil!
On rare occasions, fire whirls can develop and throw burning debris miles away.
Whoa! This bunch of trees is basically exploding right here. The oil in the eucalyptus is picking up all that heat, and there was just this big surge. Oh. The wind is really picking up. The heat I'm feeling on my face right now is almost undescribable. Yeah, gotta back away from that.
Let's make sure the wildlife here has an exit. The fire spreads erratically and is fanned in some places by 65-mile-an-hour winds. It's burning in what is Australia's third hottest year ever recorded. The hottest was just 2 years earlier.
Looks like there's possibly another fire out here. See the smoke on the horizon?
As night falls, firefighters do everything they can to contain this out-of-control bushfire.
Crews will start to get on top of it tonight. Tomorrow could be a whole nother interesting story with some more bad weather forecast.
Time will tell.
Time will tell.
Fire crews work all through the night. But the mark of a heat wave is that nighttime temperatures aren't much lower than in the daytime. On day 2, the fire is declared a major emergency. So far, it's burned through 27,000 acres. It's hit 4 towns, and 13 firefighters have been injured, and they have to deal with more catastrophic firewood.
It is a scorching hot day with very low relative humidity. Of course, as these temperatures continue to stay hot year after year after year, we're just going to see more and more fires just like this one.
We know this because we can see that all of Australia's weather is changing. Because of climate change, Australian winters are now dumping more rainfall in big bursts, causing flooding, which results in more vegetation growth and so denser bush. But in the summer, the heat is on. More hot, dry days lead to drought, and all that dense bush turns into kindling. All you need is a spark to start a raging wildfire. We're briefed that 2 new major fires have broken out and are threatening the towns of Tantanoola and Glen Cove.
How's the house in here? Oh, I'll ask him to go in and check.
This family got out safely. Nothing could be done to save their farm. This is the reality of living in South Australia. It's inhabitable, but just.
It's really astounding to see the power of these wildfires, just the tremendous speed at which they can spread, how hot they can burn, and how much of an effect they can have on the people that live here.
Over the next 4 days, 20 homes are destroyed and considerable livestock and crops are lost. But luckily, no one has died. That's not been the case in the past. The country's worst ever natural disaster was a bushfire.
We're finding more bodies as we gain access.
In 2009, 173 people died in the Black Saturday fire. Will firefighters in South Australia be able to stop this fire from turning into a similar disaster? By day 5, fire crews in South Australia are exhausted, but they continue to do everything they can to protect surrounding communities.
We might need edges right along this other side if we can.
What really impresses me is the response that you guys have. So many trucks, so many volunteers. The people around here really do seem to listen to the warnings. Yep. And obviously, some places, all you can do is stand back and watch. There's nothing you can do in a lot of situations. So, yeah.
These firefighters are on the front lines dealing with some of the worst effects of climate change in Australia. Ultimately, it takes them 6 days to bring this bushfire under control. It burned through almost 32,000 acres. 27 homes were destroyed and 134 people, mainly firefighters, were injured. The total cost was nearly $40 million. This fire is one more dramatic reminder that the effects of climate change are upon us. It's a lesson that's hitting home from one end of Australia to the other. Australians are being forced to find unique remedies to their superheated climate, and they've come up with some creative solutions to the problem. In the heart of the Australian outback, the town of Kursbrook has already found a drastic way to deal with the searing heat.
Well, come on down and I'll give you an idea of how we live. You're 10 metres underground here.
This place looks amazing. It's certainly not cave-like. You even have a window.
Yep.
And that's just a borehole to the surface. Cool in the summer, warmer in the winter.
Yep.
No heating or air conditioning costs whatsoever.
No. Ideal.
For those days under 30 degrees, the resourceful adaptations of Kursbrook continue outside.
So this is the Kursbrook golf course. I see you're missing something rather important, grass.
Yes, So we got blacks instead of greens.
And you have 18 holes here?
18 holes.
This is the worst golf course I've ever seen.
Yep, and it's probably the worst in the world. Your ball will always end up in the rough here. Someone's just gone ahead and built an 18-hole golf course in the middle of Central Australia as an act of defiance. It's like, you tell me I can't, well, here it is.
And that sort of defines the Australian personality of...
Yes, that pioneering mentality.
The people of Coober Pedy have found a unique way to beat the heat, but this is just one community. If temperatures keep rising the way they have been, the entire country may soon look like this. But will it become uninhabitable?
Well, not to Australians. The one thing that I've learned about these people is that they are strong, they are resilient. They take pride in being able to adapt and survive in these types of environments, as harsh as they might be.
There may not be a need to adapt if Australia's climate becomes more hospitable. That could happen if countries around the world reduce the amount of greenhouse gas they're putting into the atmosphere. As Australians confront the most dire effects of climate change, they're turning to alternative energy sources to fight the problem. Australia is giving the rest of the world a glimpse of the future if climate change goes unchecked. Maybe it can also show the world what can be done to fight it. I'm in Siberia, the coldest inhabited place on Earth. As global temperatures rise, this enormous icy land is melting. The entire region is built on top of permafrost, which is now thawing at an alarming rate. The ground is collapsing, traditional ways of life are threatened, and large amounts of previously trapped methane gas are seeping into the atmosphere. Siberia's big thaw could have a catastrophic effect on the entire planet.
This is red-eye flight number 303, heading to the city of Yakutsk in Siberia.
We're on our way to one of the most northerly cities in Russia. Just 280 miles from the Arctic Circle, 6 time zones from Moscow. I'm joined by Aliona Pimenova, who'll be my translator and guide as I travel to some of the coldest places on Earth. It's my first time in Siberia. It's an enormous region that covers 77% of Russia.
To put it in perspective, it takes up about 10% of the land mass on Earth. It is massive, and a good portion of that is permafrost. That land that is frozen all the time except for that top layer that freezes in the winter, thaws in the summer.
70% of Russia lies on permafrost. It's a permanently frozen layer below the Earth's surface, made up of layer after layer of soil, sediment, rock, and ice, built up over thousands of years. So, how deep does it go? Yakutsk has what I need to find out.
The deepest hole in permafrost anywhere. And it just so happens they're doing maintenance on it today.
They're going to work right now. They're trying to get rid of the ice.
It's called the Shurgen shaft. Started in 1827 and now 380 feet deep, built to explore how far down the frozen ground goes.
It's really amazing how deep this shaft really is. There's a chart here on the wall. The worker that's down there right now is about here. It goes a long way down.
Information acquired here shows that the permafrost in Siberia is some of the thickest in the world, 1.5 miles deep in some places. The entire city of Yakutsk is built on it. which has led to some peculiar adaptations.
One thing about building a city on permafrost is the top layer, well, it's not so permanent. So a lot of the buildings here in Yakutsk are actually up on these concrete stilts. It's the only way to keep the foundations from warping when it melts and refreezes. Installing and repairing pipes in frozen ground, extremely difficult. So what they've done is put them above ground and insulated the hell out of them.
Infrastructure and houses are vulnerable to the shifting ground.
Some of the buildings here in Yakutsk are actually twisting and sinking into the permafrost. This is known as subsidence.
The top layer refreezes each winter, but to varying thicknesses as Siberia gets warmer. Today, it's -1 degree Celsius, which is far from normal.
The average winter temperature here in Yakutsk is actually -34 degrees. It is nowhere near that today. The skaters are enjoying this warm spell.
Siberia is one of the fastest warming places on the planet, and that has potentially serious consequences for the permafrost below.
What most people don't realize is that trapped under the permafrost here is a ticking time bomb for climate change.
I've come to the underground laboratory here at the Permafrost Institute to learn more.
The coolest part of the Permafrost Institute, literally and figuratively, is the tunnel they've built underneath the building, 12 meters down. Here they can actually study the permafrost in situ.
Leading expert Dr. Alexander Fedorov has observed some big changes.
Вот это большая проблема.
This is the main problem that they are studying, the permafrost melting.
Right.
Изменение температуры мерзлых пород идут. Глубина протаивания увеличивается, и криогенные процессы сильно активизируются.
Melting permafrost is releasing huge amounts of methane gas, causing global concern. Researchers have found lakes literally bubbling with methane. Permafrost acts like a lid, locking carbon gases like methane in the ground. All that gas was formed from long-buried organic matter, dead animals, and plant life that have been on ice for thousands of years. Now, increased heat is penetrating deeper into the permafrost, thawing it, and releasing these dangerous greenhouse gases into the atmosphere. This could have a bigger impact on global warming than the burning of fossil fuels.
Усиление вот этого глобального потепления, она может произойти очень быстро.
Our carbon emissions cause the permafrost to melt, releasing methane gas, which causes the climate to warm, which causes the permafrost to melt even more, runaway greenhouse effect that could put us in the position where it becomes irreversible.
Every year, Dr. Fedorov and his team drill deep into the ground to analyze changes in the permafrost.
How far down do you drill?
5 meters, 6 meters.
That's some tough stuff.
Dr. Fedorov probes the permafrost in many locations. And what he's seeing in northern Yakutia is alarming.
We have surface subsidence more than 2 meters.
Surface subsidence of 2 meters.
Subside.
As the icy permafrost melts, the ground sinks. The formation of thaw ponds and lakes is rapidly increasing all over northeastern Siberia.
You're seeing dramatic changes.
Yes.
Scientists predict that the area of permafrost in the northern hemisphere will decline by 20 to 35% by the middle of this century, releasing a monumental amount of greenhouse gas. But as the ground melts, it's also unearthing some fascinating finds.
It looks like roadkill from last week, but it's 12,000 years old.
While the melting permafrost is a major concern, there is one positive side effect. The thawing has led to some incredible discoveries.
It's not just methane gas that's released by the melting permafrost. Sometimes things like woolly mammoths are found here, and Yakutia is the place in the world to find these frozen prehistoric creatures. There's a researcher here who's going to show me exactly what that's all about.
The Mammoth Museum houses the most diverse collection of ancient animals in the world, some of which were recently exposed in the thawing ground.
Do you think that as our climate gets warmer, it'll be easier to find more of these mammoths?
Да, возможно, есть какая-то связь. Да? Сейчас вот у нас на севере Якутии есть, образовалась огромная дыра в земле, котловина, где вот нашли вот этого бизончика, который там лежит, и тушу лошади.
Today, Professor Grigoriev is taking me behind the scenes to show me some of his most impressive discoveries.
Most important place in museum.
Yes. Wow.
Mammoth tusks.
Yes.
Very good preserved. Tusks of Malolekhovsky mammoth. With blood, with muscles. And one of the first domesticated dog on the road.
What is the first domesticated dog?
Geological age, 12,500.
12,500 years old.
The pressure of layer upon layer of built-up ice flattened this dog.
It looks like roadkill from last week, but it's 12,000 years old. You can see the teeth and the hair, everything here. It's amazing.
You can find similar find only in Yakutia.
Without a question, this is the strangest walk-in freezer that I've ever been in.
The discovery of prehistoric animals demonstrates that the land is thawing, but how much of it is melting is so far unknown.
So I've met with the scientists, but what I want to do next is meet with the people who live off the land.
I want to see how the melting permafrost is affecting them. I'm hitting the road and heading far north to some of the most isolated communities in Russia. I'll be camping with reindeer herders along the way to my ultimate destination, Oymyakon, the coldest town on Earth.
Eliona!
Oh.
Eliona and our driver Artum will be making the journey with me. It's going to take 4 days of driving in treacherous conditions. First, we need to get across the Lena River, which for now is frozen solid.
At least that's what I like to believe. Today is about an 8 to 10 hour drive getting from Yakutsk up to Kandiga, and that's where we're going to be spending the night. And back onto solid ground.
We're now on the Kolyma Highway, otherwise known as the Road of Bones.
It looks like any other road, but very few roads have the history that this one does.
It was built during the Stalinist era by the prisoners of the infamous Gulag labor camps. The skeletons of the forced laborers who died during its construction were just buried into the road itself. The road is notoriously treacherous. It was laid on permafrost, so it's twisted and uneven. In places, it's very narrow and covered in a layer of thick snow.
A common practice during the coldest part of the year is to never travel alone. If you break down and you've got no help, bad things happen very quickly when it's minus 50.
It doesn't take long before we spot trouble up ahead.
This truck lost its load of pipes and went right off the road. I've heard so many stories about this road, how dangerous it is. Usually the weather conditions are bad. This road lives up to its name.
An hour and a half later, there's another accident.
So the emergency services guys are down there right now. Oh, wow. It's been just one obstacle after another all day long, and we still have a long way to go.
We press on, but getting to Oymyakon is not going to be easy. After sneaking in a few hours of sleep in Kandiga, we're back on the road early the next day.
So the plan today is to go a little further north up to one of the Gulag areas. Heaven forbid, if you were a criminal or a political prisoner, this is where you would have been sent. It's quite a bit further north. It's going to take quite a few hours to get up there on a really bad road. And the camp is away from the roads. It's not going to be easy to find. There's a lot of barbed wire here. Another building down there. The gulags were a vast system of prisons that spanned the entire Soviet Union. And between the 1930s and early 1950s, between 15 and 20 million people working hard labor, long hours, in all conditions, all seasons. Horrible. Work people to death. To honor the prisoners, locals have built a museum in their memory. Many were convicted of the most minor offenses, like Anna Aminalova.
Она в 43-м году, 14-летняя девочка, ее отправили по этапу Магадана. Осудили на 10 лет за то, что она, воровала килограмм картошки.
She survived, and her story can be told. But many did not make it out.
These gates are not particularly high, not particularly strong, but then again, they didn't need to be. In this terrain, in Siberia, if you escape, you faced almost certain death in the wilderness.
We're back on the road of bones, and our plan is to reach the reindeer herders of Uchige first thing tomorrow. It's slow going, and we're down to one lane when we hit another roadblock.
This is actually a pretty serious situation right now. We have several vehicles stuck on this road, and no one can move in either direction. Not good. Thankfully, it's not minus 50.
Everyone pulls together. The road is cleared, and we can keep moving.
We are free and clear for now. Fingers crossed. Time to switch up the mode of transportation.
I'm joining the local reindeer herders for a journey into the wilderness. Their 1,400-year-old way of life is being threatened by the changing climate, and I want to understand more.
Off to the next leg of my adventure. On a reindeer sled in Siberia. Woo! It's like dog sledding with less barking.
Reindeer herders rely on the income from selling reindeer meat, a staple in this part of the world. They're constantly moving and must trek every few weeks across this vast wilderness to find new pastures for their reindeer to graze.
Whoa! Whoa! Ow. Oh! We just had some kind of harness failure. Ouch.
After 3 hours of sledding, we've hit base camp.
It's home for tonight.
The temperature is minus 20, which is actually warm for this time of year, a trend the local herders have noticed.
Да, в этом году в ноябре-декабре тепло было, потом резко в какой-то период заморозки стали, потом опять потеплело потихоньку.
Every aspect of their life revolves around the weather, and they have to be able to work with it, work around it, and still be able to prosper and survive.
But now, the warming climate and melting permafrost is slowly killing off the reindeer. Mikhail Pogodayev has lived with the reindeer his entire life. He now advocates for their survival.
When the climate is changing and you see that there are changes on the snow conditions, the reindeer will starve if the pastures will be packed with the ice.
As warm spells increase, the snow melts, leaving a layer of water. But in a snap freeze, an ice crust forms that the reindeer can't penetrate to find food. 12,000 reindeer died of starvation last year. For the herders, climate change is very real. I'm camping out with the herders for the night. They're preparing a hearty meal, stew, hot tea, and vodka.
The tradition they have here is to make a little sacrifice before every meal.
Usually a bit of food or maybe a splash of vodka goes into the fire for good luck and health.
It's time for bed. The sun is going down, and so are the temperatures. It's minus 40 degrees, and it's shaping up to be one of the coldest sleeps of my life. Tomorrow, the pole of cold is in our sights, and even this place isn't immune to climate change.
The fire died about halfway through the night. Whew. Inside the tent, that's what happened to my water. It was kind of cold.
It's time for me to leave the Reindeer and carry on my journey north. We head out. We make sure to load up at the last gas station before Oymyakon. After a day's driving, we make it to our final destination, the coldest town on Earth. It's a bumpy arrival.
I guess this is the kind of roads you get when you build your town on permafrost. The road just twists and buckles.
In the 1920s and 30s, it was a seasonal stop for reindeer herders. Now, it's a permanent settlement of just 500 people.
I finally made it to Oymyakon, the pole of cold. And on February 6, 1933, they recorded a temperature of minus 71.2 Celsius, extremely cold. Nowhere in the Northern Hemisphere has a temperature that low ever been recorded.
It may be cold out, but our reception is warm. The locals are performing a traditional welcoming ceremony for us.
So what is it about this place in particular that makes it so cold? The main reason is that Oymyakon sits in a valley. The cold air is trapped by these mountains, and it just sits there and pools. Beautiful blue sky, but bone-chillingly cold.
But not as cold as expected. Today, it's minus 31. Aliona and I are at the local weather station where we meet meteorologist Mika Bakarova. They've been recording temperatures for the last 50 years here and have observed some big changes.
Вторая декада марта официальная, на 4 градуса температура была выше средних многолетних норм.
Local fishermen have noticed the shift as well.
Раньше здесь лед такая толстая была, да? Сейчас уже такая становится, потоньше.
Arctic temperatures are expected to increase between 1.5 to 2.5 degrees by 2040, meaning the permafrost will continue to thaw at a dangerous rate.
We're afraid that we're going to reach a tipping point where our carbon emissions cause the permafrost to melt, releasing methane gas, which causes the climate to warm, which causes the permafrost to melt even more. And you can see where this is headed.
There's no doubt the temperature here is warming, but if global greenhouse emissions can be reduced, it may not be too late to halt this rise and keep the permafrost frozen.